Hello and welcome to the Pregnancy Help Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Bell. As Mother's Day approaches, we're taking time to honor mothers in a meaningful way by focusing on birth mothers and the unique journeys they carry. In today's conversation, we'll explore how the Pregnancy Help community can better care for, support, and honor their stories with compassion and dignity. I'm joined today by a wonderful group of guests. Robin Stevenson is founder and director of Lifetree Adoption Agency in Texas. Selena Arevalo is adoption specialist with Lifetree. And Kathy German is Heartbeat's director of affiliate services. Ladies, thank you so much for being here today. And Kathy, I'm going to hand it over to you to get us started.
Great. Thank you, Lauren. I'm so excited to be here today. And we're grateful that you're all joining us for this episode. And in the pregnancy help movement, we often talk about supporting women well. But when it comes to adoption, that support must be rooted in deep compassion, dignity, honesty, and respect. Adoption is not simply a decision or a process. For many women, it is an emotional and deeply personal journey filled with love, grief, courage, questions, and hope. Today, we're going to talk about what it truly means to honor and care well for women who are considering adoption. We'll also address some of the common misconceptions surrounding modern adoption and discuss how pregnancy help organizations can walk alongside women in ethical, trustworthy, and compassionate ways. I'm especially excited for this conversation because in my previous role as an executive director in New York, our organization was both a pregnancy resource center and also an adoption agency. So adoption has been a meaningful part of my own pregnancy help journey for many years. And I believe this is an area where pregnancy help organizations have both a tremendous opportunity and a profound responsibility to serve women well. So thank you both for being here. And let's dive into this important conversation. Robin and Selena, to begin with, I'd love for each of you to briefly introduce yourselves to our audience, share a little bit about your background and what led you to become involved with Lifetree Adoption, and then the roles that you currently serve there.
I am Selena. I'm a birth mother. I placed 10 years ago, and I currently work with birth moms or expectant moms who are looking and wanting to place for adoption.
Mm-hmm. And she also is fluent in Spanish, too. So I'm Robin Stevenson. I'm the executive director here at Lifetree Adoption Agency. I'm also an adoptive mom. So I have taken all my trials and tribulations of my life and turned it into this beautiful ministry of Lifetree Adoption Agency to help those that are walking through my path to see a beautiful light at the end of this dark tunnel and to love people where they are at in this world that they called adoption.
Great. Thank you guys both so much for sharing that. So we've kind of titled this episode Honoring Her Story. So what does that mean to you guys both in the context of adoption and pregnancy help ministry?
For me, as an adoptive mom, I meant in this ministry is to seeing her right where she's at, to knowing that, what she has done and where she's at in life and the love that a birth mother has is one that is just not, how do I say this, comprehensible. It's not a simple love. It is a love that struggles and it questions and it honors and it hurts and it hopes and it does all these things at the same time. And yet it's the most sacred thing that I've ever have witnessed in my entire life, I said. So when honoring her, we see her where she's at, not just that decision, that moment and placement time, and to see her heart, because she's trying to go through all these emotions, all these difficult questions, and all these circumstances of her own while she's pregnant. And it comes to that one particular moment where she's like, she has to come to the best choice that she can for her child. And it might be at the greatest personal cost. Her story, I would say, just doesn't end at placement, where a lot of the pregnancy centers like, okay, now she's come to the placement, so her story's over. It's kind of like she's done. And that's not it. It keeps going. It keeps growing. To me, being a birth mother, her placement or being called or entitled as a birth mother is not one where it makes up who she entirely is. It's just part of her story. It's not the whole thing. And that's where people kind of, look at her and say, oh, well, you're a birth mother. Oh, I've got your story made, and that's not it. It's just a fraction of her story. When we see all this and we take this and grasp it, it's one where we just truly see that inside of us, we start to shift. We start to change ourselves. We start seeing her as not someone we serve, but rather someone behind the story. She begins to feel like she's human, and in that she's not forgotten, and that her story matters, and that it's never a small story. It's never small what she did. It's big and it's sacred, and it always will be. And it's to me as a adoptive mom, I love you know um, her and truly honor her in our household. I'll tell you that for a fact.
I love that, Robin. That's beautiful. So, Selena, how has your personal experience as a birth mother shaped your role as adoption specialist at LifeTree?
I think it kind of has shaped everything, every step of the way, just because I know firsthand what a lot of the girls are feeling, those
Mhm.
emotions that they go through, and I can empathize with them. And it kind of helps me, answer a lot of those questions and a lot of those um, the doubts that they have in their head about adoption and like what it's going to be like in the future. And so it has really helped me a lot to understand them too, and to walk through that journey with them. And I love being able to hold their hand and say, I'm here and I can not fully understand, but I sort of understand what you're going through. And we're going to do this together. And no matter
Mhm,
what decision she decides for her and her child, she has somebody in her corner that understands a little bit, even if
mhm,
it is just a little bit.
mhm,
Love that. And what a way to build trust with her right away because you've been there and you've experienced it. So you can truly relate and empathize with her, just like you said. So she's going to immediately feel that connection and that bond to you and trust that, what you're saying and what you're telling her is true and is, actually a accurate representation of what the process is going to be like. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. What are some of the emotional realities that women may be carrying when they first begin considering adoption?
I think one of the first ones is probably fear of
mhm,
the unknown. Depending on like culture, like me, Hispanic, thinking about adoption, there's shame that goes with that.
mhm,
I think there's also the fear of judgment. I
mhm,
think fear is the biggest one. Maybe a little bit of embarrassment.
mhm,
For me personally, I think the embarrassment and shame was two of the biggest things just because in our culture, Hispanic culture, we just don't, talking about adoption is very taboo. It doesn't get talked about. And so to even consider it was very, very scary.
mhm.
But, you know, mhm,
I think you could add some of the what the world says
mhm,
about adoption, that stigma,
Yes.
and that she has to cross that boundary. When she says that she's a birth mother, and then she defines what that is, and then you have a lot of people that, well, how could you do that?
mhm,
And that's where you get all the world's, you know, speaking in their ear, and that's the part of that stigma that I would love to change.
yeah, the fear.
Is that fear of that unknown. I mean, there's so much that's going through my head. It's like I just want to take somebody and just shake them and say, "No, that's not the way it is today. We don't do it like that." Because that's just the stigma, and the stigma of the world just has to change because all these misconceptions that are out there are just totally destroying the path of adoption for a lot of these birth families.
So then how do you think pregnancy help organizations can create a space where a woman feels safe, heard, and empowered to make her own decisions?
I mean, for me, to help her feel safe is like when she walks into that door, into that room, and everything like that, it's just she needs to feel that you are not there to judge her immediately, that you're open, you're coming with compassion, you're coming with um, arms stretched out to her and trying to wrap her up and be one with her.
Well, I think personally, I think one of the things that can help them feel a little bit safe is actually having that conversation about all three options, right? Parenting, adoption, abortion, and actually getting all the information about adoption. Because I think a lot of women are misinformed or they hear the
Mhm,
misconceptions about adoption and they kind of think that it's foster care and it's not. Adoption has evolved so much throughout the years
mhm,
that I think that they should get that information. And
mhm,
that's something that should be presented to them when they go into a pregnancy center, to hear about all three options. And personally, me, I was not told anything about adoption. It was something that I had to research on my own. But I wish I would have been told and maybe had that conversation of, we're going to talk about all three options. Which one do you want to start off with first? And then, leveling that playing field to let me make my own decision and let women make their own informed decision for themselves. Because even though, and I know sometimes this kind of happens, is we have our own biases, and maybe they might think that she can do it, she can parent, but that's a decision for her to make. And I think giving her all the information that she can have about all three options and then letting her make that decision for herself is the best thing to do for her. And that's one way to make her feel safe and heard and empowered to make that decision for herself.
I love that. I love what you just shared. And that's really the heart of it, really, is our pregnancy centers need to be trained in how to present adoption as an option. And like you said, all three options need to be laid out for them where they understand adoption, abortion, and parenting and what that's going to look like specifically for her, whether she has the outside support and all the various things that she needs to take into consideration. So I think that that's really, really important that she understands all three, and that you're right, she can make an informed decision on her own. Because I remember, that is one of the big things that you hear a lot is, a lot of these birth moms will think, well, it's just like foster care, and I would never put my child in foster care. And I grew up in the foster system, and I'm not gonna do that to my child. We would hear that all the time, and it's not like that. And so having to, just be able to break that down and explain to her what adoption looks like, and that they get to pick the family, that they get to look at different profiles and pick out a family. And if they choose to meet them ahead of time, or if they want, the adoptive parents to be present in the labor and delivery room. Like, that's what I think is so beautiful, is that the birth mom truly is kind of in the driver's seat. She gets to make a lot of those decisions and choices on her own. So it can be really, really beautiful.
Yeah, with some of the centers that have seen and stuff like that, they're a lot of choice based, and when you have your advocate come in there and it's like, okay, do you want to talk about adoption and or which one do you want to talk about? Or, they lay them out and they'll check their boxes or however that would be. And then when she doesn't check adoption, well, sometimes the advocate's like, okay, good. I don't want to talk about that either. That's also symbolizing to her is like, okay, so since you don't want to talk about it, I don't want to talk about it, then it's okay. It's not a good thing to do. Yeah. And nobody wants to talk about it. So let's just bury it. And I think if we could surface it and give her the full educational tool to make her decision in whatever path God leads her down, I think that's where we need to come in one and be able, like Selena was saying, talk about all the options. And you don't have to go in detail, because the advocates, they know wholeheartedly what parenting is. And I look at it of, adoption is a parenting plan. It's just not your traditional parenting plan, but she is making a parenting choice for her child, And the advocate knows all about abortion. I mean, they can go into some great detail about what that looks like. But when it comes to adoption, it's kind of like, okay, I don't really know anything about it because I couldn't do it. So why would I want her to do it? And like Selena said, coming with some of her own biases. And that for me, being an adoptive mom, thank God, that somebody said that to her, and that she was able to make a choice and to make me a mom. And I'm so thankful. And, even though Selena didn't place with me, I'm so thankful that, she's made that choice to be to give that child that family, that love, that life, that gift, and however you want to look at it. But, it all starts at the center because a lot of our birth families do come from the start of the pregnancy center. Some of them think what they're saying and what they're doing does not mean or matter because they don't really see the outcome. Because sometimes a girl can go to the center doesn't know anything about it. They're just handed a couple of pamphlets, just in case, and kind of walk out. And this is a way that, when she goes home and she thinks about it and prays about it and she decides, okay, well, I think this is the best thing for me to do is go ahead and do this parenting plan in place of my child for adoption, the center might not know anything about it. They might not have a clue because she finds a peace, then I know God's with her. I know God's backing her up. That's his will for her. And it's just getting there to that peace.
Right. And you bring up a good point too with the client advocates that are serving in pregnancy centers. They don't need to know everything there is to know about adoption because that's your job, right? Like they need to be able to confidently and compassionately share the option of adoption and explain, the overall process and kind of some of the small details. But then it's your job as the adoption agency to go in and to really come alongside her and explain, all the little details of the process and how it can work. So why do you think it's important for our pregnancy help organizations to partner with ethical, trustworthy adoption professionals like yourselves?
I would say the biggest one for me, being an adoptive mom, I wanted to make sure that I had the foundation for my child. It started at the home, and the home was for me and my husband. And and so I wanted to have that biblical foundation for her to build, her to instill that into her. Like Selena is coming to me and she's just shattered. She's just all in a fragmented pieces. And she goes to the center and the center molds her and puts her back together. They're handing her to the agency to say, okay, we've put her back together. We need you to solidify all these cracks in her and to bring her whole again. And we want that agency to mirror what we're going to be doing too in our life as well. And if she's not having that and not knowing what that is, then the child is not going to have that foundation like we want that child to have and what she's prayed about. And I guess, her vision, if I could say that, what she's envisioned for her child to grow up in.
I think part of being like an ethical agency is that the agency has a lot of care for the birth mother, not only through her adoption process and her placement, but also afterwards. So you want to make sure that the agency is giving her that support, that counseling, resources, even
Mhm.
afterwards, because there are some moms that have other children, that still need those resources and that the agency is able to provide those for her. There, are other stuff like Brave Love, who's a really good resource, one that I personally use to speak to other birth moms who have walked through this process. And so you want to be able to partner with a ethical agency that's going to make sure that all parts of the adoption triad are taken care of, not just the child, not just the adoptive family, but also the birth mom, and you make sure that all three are well taken care of in the end.
And one of the things that is really good in vetting these types of agencies is Christian Adoption Alliance. They're very good at going in and making sure that the agency is walking the walk and talking the talk, and that matters. That takes the guesswork out of the pregnancies to know. I guess the pregnancy centers to know, is this a good agency or this is not a good agency, and what is the definition of a good agency? It's I believe it's one that mirrors the same morals and values that if any family that walks in there, she's going to have the same thing that when she's handed off to the pregnancy center, to the adoption agency, she will have those same values that she knows that will be instilled in that agency too. I think it's just, feeling safe and feeling trusted and comforted by that while she's going through all these different emotions.
Well, right. That pregnancy center wants to feel confident that when they refer a mom to an adoption agency, that they're going to be cared for well and they're going to be supported and loved just like they would be loved in the center. And we used to work in the center that I worked at was, we worked with many, many different pregnancy centers across the state of New York. So when a pregnancy center would call and say, they have someone that's possibly interested in adoption, our birth parent advocate would get on the phone, right away and have a conversation with her or a Zoom meeting. A lot of times she would go there in person, get there as quickly as she could, set up a time that is convenient for both of them. And then to be able to meet with her at that pregnancy center and the client advocate might be in the same room too, because they've already built a relationship with that mom and can, just provide a level of um safety, I guess, and trust so that she doesn't feel like she's all alone. So it can work really beautifully where the pregnancy center and adoption agency can kind of come alongside each other to help her. And I think that was just one of the most beautiful situations that happen is when the pregnancy center does stay involved. I mean, not to the point where they're overstepping or anything, but just involved so that that mom knows that the adoption agency loves her, but so does that pregnancy center. And Selena, like you said, after placement is important as well because she may have other children that need care and need supplies and diapers, and she may need parenting resources and those various different things. And then, I know the adoption agency also obviously cares for the birth mom post placement, but it's nice when the pregnancy center can continue to partner, with them. And maybe she needs, education resources or, help with job, resume, that kind of thing. It's a partnership. It's, we should all be working together to support that mom. So it really can be a beautiful partnership and connection. So kind of changing gears a little bit, but you talked earlier about some of the misconceptions that people have about modern adoption. So can you kind of unpack that a little bit more?
I mean, for me, the one thing I always hear is give up. The biggest misconception, she give up, she gave away, she didn't want, a lot of the things for me, even my own mother says that, oh, I could never give up my child or something like that, and I come back to her and I was like, thank gosh, that, someone did for me, if I could say it like that. But I don't like the words give up because I would hate for my daughter's biological mother feel like she gave up on her because she did not. She made a plan. She made a beautiful plan for her. And that, it's maybe not, like I said, your traditional plan, but it is a plan that is beautiful and it has this beautiful story and this beautiful ending, if I could say that too. But it's also one where she can cherish that forever and still be involved. And it's no longer out of sight, out of mind kind of thing for her either.
Yeah, I think the other misconception is, like I said earlier, foster care. They think that adoption is foster care and that their child is going to, go from home to home to home. And that's not the case. In adoption, you get to choose who is going to raise this child and who's going to be their mom and dad for the rest of their life. And like in my situation, I have a beautiful open adoption. And her adoptive parents were in the room when I gave birth. And I still get to get updates and letters and I still get to see her.
Mhm.
And so it's not like I just, placed her for adoption and then I turned away and I never get to know anything else about her. And I think that also kind of goes back to like people thinking that it's like the adoptions back in like the 1950s where everything
Mhm.
was closed and it was shut
Secretive.
off. Yeah,
Yeah.
like no one knows about it. They send you off, you have your baby, and then you come back and everything's fine. And that's not what it is anymore. It's having that openness now too that you can get all these things, the visits, the updates, knowing how they are,
Mhm.
even 5, 10 years, 15 years down the road. I think a lot of people also think about it like how you see on Lifetime movies,
Mhm.
the adoption movies, that everyone thinks that's how it's going to be. And they're going to come back and find you when they're 18 years old and knock on your door. And it's like, well, it doesn't have to be that way. It can be a beautiful story where, like in my sense, I placed her for adoption and I gave her a mom and a dad that could give her everything that she could ever ask for. But I'm not going anywhere. I'm still here. I'm still a parent. I just chose to parent a different way.
Mhm.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I think you bring up another good point of making sure that centers are trained and aware of positive adoption language so that they are using words like she made an adoption plan. And I mean, just even those words are what help to honor that mom as well. So I think training is a big thing that we need to emphasize with our centers so that they really fully understand, like you said, the misconceptions that are out there that the birth mom of today has so much more choice and ability to speak up and make the birth plan her plan and make the adoption plan her plan. Like you said, some of them want more of an open adoption and some want it to be more closed, and either way is okay. And I know that, adoption laws are different in each state, but it could start out where it's more closed. I know we had situations where the adoptive parents provided the letters and pictures every year, and the birth mom just decided she wasn't ready for it. She didn't want them. So we kept them in her file. And so, they were just collecting in her file. And then, 5, 6, 7 years later, sometimes we would have birth moms come back and be like, okay, now I want those. And it's so meaningful, when she gets to see that and watch her child grow up through those letters and pictures and know how loved they are. So it's truly, it really is her choice, and she gets to make a lot of those decisions about, where her child is going to end up. So, um, how else can a pregnancy center present adoption honestly and ethically without oversimplifying the grief and the loss and the complexity that comes along with it? Because we know that while adoption is beautiful, it can be really, really beautiful, but then it can also bring with it lots of pain and grief and loss. And not just, for the expectant mom, but also for the adoptive parents as well. There's grief and loss, on all sides of it. So how can a pregnancy help organization kind of, help to simplify that or help to just kind of ease some of that?
I mean, adoption is an alternative, but it's not easy. It's not an easy alternative, and in the grief process of it, I mean, she's still pregnant. She's still, going through her pregnancy and everything like that. And adoption is, I mean, it's a bittersweet moment. And I've had adoptive families who have expressed to me that no one has ever told them what a birth family goes through and what that looks like for her. And so I, from that point on, I was like, you know what? Nobody told me either. And I thought that was the standard. Will we make the change? And I think it's a beautiful change for her, even the adoptive family side of things to know what she's going through that process and that recovery process, not just when she comes to the decision of placing, but the aftermath of when she goes, picks up her bootsteps and, turns on to that journey of life.
I think one way to really present it is just kind of giving the facts about adoption, nipping those misconceptions in the butt kind of right at the beginning of, this isn't foster care. You can make decisions. You're in the driver's seat. But also, letting her know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You're going to have support along the way. But also, being honest and truthful that there is grief. It is going to be hard. It's not a simple
Mhm.
decision. But I think that's one way to really help her is to just be honest with her, answer those questions truthfully to her, and you know, being there with her, being a support system along the way is another big way to help her. Not only, because obviously she'll get that support at the pregnancy center, but then handing her off to a good ethical agency that then can take on the rest of it and help her through the rest of the process as she places. Um, and then obviously being there after placement and offering resources after.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would agree. And just being able to affirm her feelings and her emotions because they're going to change a million times throughout her pregnancy, where she may change her mind a couple of times about
Yeah.
placement,
Yeah.
that she's
Yeah.
going to parent, then she's going to place, and she goes back and forth. I mean, there's hormones and all different kinds of things to take into account. But I think you're right, being upfront with her from the beginning that, yes, this is a beautiful and selfless thing that you're choosing to do, but it is also going to be hard and you will feel that loss and that grief. And I think it's also important that pregnancy centers have a list of referrals for therapy and counseling afterwards. And not all birth moms are going to want it right away or feel like they need it. But I think it's important that we partner with adoption competent therapists that can really speak to and understand what she's going through. So I think that that's important. And then to be able to even just refer her to other birth mom resources, like you mentioned, Brave Love, that can provide that support too. So I think an important thing that both of you have brought up today is just that pregnancy centers need to be really fully trained on adoption, on how to present it and how to be able to talk confidently with it to a mom that walks into their center not knowing what she wants to do. So just to be able to present it in an open, honest way, if anyone out there is listening and they don't know about any adoption agencies that they would feel comfortable working with in their area, you can always reach out to Heartbeat. You can call us, you can email at support@heartbeatinternational.org, and we can help connect you, like Robin already said, with Christian Adoption Alliance and other agencies that are in the area that in your area that might be able to partner with you. And then, just like with anything else, we want you to do your own research. You need to reach out to those professionals and you need to interview them. You need to have a list of adoption professionals that you are comfortable working with, but you want to be able to give that mom a choice as well and not just say, okay, well, here's one and this is the only one that we work with. No, you want to be able to give her a choice so that she can call them and she can meet with them and make that choice for herself, which one she wants to work with. And so, we want our pregnancy centers to do that work themselves too, to interview adoption agencies, like you said, and really know and feel comfortable that they are going to represent their Christian life affirming values as well. So in closing, do you guys have a story that you might want to share of a woman from your agency that was truly honored and cared for well during her adoption journey?
I have so many stories. It's so hard to kind of narrow it down to one, I can even tell Selena's story because she was one of, Lifetree's birth families that, we walked that path with her. We walked alongside her through that path and through that story. And she's taken that story and she's crafted it to where she can reach those in a space where no one else can reach but a birth mother. And because I can't reach that, she can reach that. We've had one of our birth families, Lauren, she's gone to several of the pregnancy resource centers around town and she's talked about her story and she's wanting to people to hear that it's not that we are real. We are to be loved on. We are not this person that's that's out of sight, out of mind, And let me just tell you, I did have other children and I did get married and I have this beautiful family and it doesn't just stop there. It just keeps growing. And she's taken it to where she wanted to be educated in the field. So she got her, that tool. And then she's coming and taking that tool and bringing it into the house of an adoption agency with Lifetree. And she's sharing that with other families too, that are walking in her path and walking down that road. And, in that journey that she got through to get there, it was just, I couldn't say it was a smooth path. It was a long, curvy path.
And I think statistically speaking, it takes women about 5 to 7 years to even talk about their adoption. I should say birth mothers to talk about their adoption story. And so to feel truly honored and cared for is to give them that space and give them that time during, while they are going through that grieving process. But also letting them know that they can come to you at any time to talk to you. And that's making them feel cared for through the process, but even after placement. Because I know she battles with me not coming to her after my placement because I was struggling through it. But it did take me 5 to 7 years to really come around to being open to saying, okay, I'm a birth mom. And I hold that title very dear and near to my heart. And being able to say that out loud and not feel any shame behind it. And knowing that it was a decision that I made out of love. And so I think that's one way to truly share and to truly have, to have that care for in your process. Is to feel that you still have support through the whole journey.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Selena, and for sharing your personal experiences as well. So Robin and Selena, thank you both so much for joining us today. It's truly been a pleasure to have this conversation with you. And as we close, I hope this discussion reminds us that honoring women well means far more than simply presenting adoption as an option. It means listening with compassion, protecting dignity, making space for honest emotions, and walking alongside women with care and respect throughout her journey. So for those serving in pregnancy help ministry, may we continue creating environments where women feel safe, valued, heard, and supported. Ethical, compassionate care has a lasting impact, not only on women, but on the children and families as well. So thank you again for listening. We're grateful you spent this time with us, and we hope this conversation encourages and equips you to serve women with even greater wisdom, compassion, and grace.